Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to those of you in the room and all the people that are joining us online as well. I'm Reverend Richard Burdick, and it's my privilege to invite you into our Wednesday night experience here at Unity North Atlanta. Typically on Wednesday nights, we do a meditation. It's our time of quiet and reflection. But one thing we teach at Unity is that service is the highest form of meditation. Service is the highest form of prayer, and that service is the highest form of knowing the infinite presence of God. And so we're going to be turning over our typical meditation tonight to be focusing on service. And I have many people in the room here that are here to get trained to serve, in particular with one of Unity North's favorite partners, and that is the Family Promise Network. We've been partnering with them for many, many years now. And we were one of the churches that began here in Cobb County hosting families. I'm here tonight, and I'm going to turn the evening over to Bob Foster, who was one of the original founding board members of Family Promise and has been one of the trainers. Tonight is going to be a training. There's going to be some videos that you're going to see, some PowerPoint presentation, and some offerings from Bob. But I want to begin, as always we do at Unity, with a moment of prayer. And so I invite those in the room to close your outer eyes and to open your inner eyes, and those of you online to do the same. And let's come to the highest and deepest awareness that God is present right now, and that God and love and peace and joy are not contained in time or space, but we feel each of those qualities and 1,000 more in our hearts. And as we feel them individually, we are joined collectively. Whether we are in the room or in some far-off distant land, we are one. We know that oneness as we share tonight. We know that oneness as we learn tonight, as we grow and we continue to be ambassadors of what God would do through our hands, through our feet, through our spirits, and through our service. Thank you, God, for this evening and for all that entails, all that ensues here this evening. For this and much more, we are grateful. Amen. So tonight is going to be a training for the Family Promise Network, and Bob Foster is here, and I'm going to turn the program over to him. I didn't tell him which camera to look at. Your camera is going to be right up there by the clock. You'll be looking at those folks there, and of course the folks are here. Welcome to Unity North, welcome to this space, and welcome to our hearts, and welcome to this evening's program.
Reverend
Bob?
Richard, thank you so much. And thank you from Family Promise for y'all being here tonight. You know what we've been through the last couple of years as a country, as a world. Family Promise has been through that too. Prior to the pandemic, me and a few of the other trainers, some of whom are here tonight, were doing a training kind of like this about once a month, in person only. We now have an online training that our national organization has created, and we're going to be looking at some of that to begin with. And that's online. That's what you see up on the screens. And then I'm going to go through a PowerPoint that tells you more about Family Promise just here in Cobb County and how we do things where the rubber meets the road. So that's the kind of the plan for the evening. If there's anything that occurs to you as a question along the way, stick your hand up and we can probably answer it on the fly and keep going.
We have a microphone that's right in the front.
There's a mic right here.
Yeah, we'll turn that on.
And we can get it so the people online can also hear it that way. So if you're able, come up to the mic and ask the question. Otherwise, I'll try and repeat it. And we're trying to move into the digital world in fits and starts. I've got the online training on my computer over the internet, but we haven't been able to connect directly to put this onto the recording that they're making. So what they're going to be trying to do is to look at this, and as you can see, I can't get the whole screen on at one time on my computer. So the training will be going through, and you'll have to kind of look at it as you can see it up there. Family Promise mission. I think if you didn't know the mission, you probably wouldn't be here tonight. But our goal nationally and at each of the places around the country where we do this is to help families that are going through an episode of homelessness. There are all kinds of shelters that help people, that some of which they can help with families. We have a wonderful program in Cobb County, Must Ministries. But what they do really wasn't geared specifically to families, so they had not been laid out for families. You know, they're getting a new shelter that's opening up, and that new shelter will be better able to help families. But every year since we've been open, which is about since 2014, Family Promise has had hundreds and hundreds of applications for service, applications from people that needed our services, that are families that have children in their group, which is our definition of a family, and they have been homeless in some fashion. They may have been staying in a transient motel, they may have been doubled up with another family, they may have been sleeping in their car, but they didn't have their own place, and we couldn't help all of them. Every year we can help about 20 families when we're up and running and open full time. And that's about where we were before the pandemic. That's probably where we'll be for a while. We got 800 applications for service the last year before the pandemic. So that's the disparity. And the same thing is true nationally. A lot of the communities that have Family Promise affiliates around the country are there because the people that live there recognize that need. Now I'm going to kind of go through this, and we have the next thing on here is a video. Let me make sure I can get this expanded so you can see it on the screen. Come on now. Maybe I should have started here. Yeah, it's trying to get it, but it's for some reason, I don't know if the bandwidth is. You've got it up? That one? Okay.
This country, there's few shelter beds for families. And those shelters that do take families in, they split families up. What's unique about Family Promise is that we keep families together. And when they come into our program, we work with them to help rebuild their lives. We help them to find housing, jobs, job training. We help them find health care, daycare. It's a very comprehensive program.
The affiliate model is replicable and cost-effective because every community, whether it is a large city, a suburb, or a rural area, has the key components. They have congregations that can provide space. They have a pool of volunteers who are passionate, who want to make a difference, and realize that if you can get all of these people working together, you can address family homelessness in a way that is not only cost-effective, but highly successful.
I can't even put into words how it is that everybody was just there. It didn't matter who I was, what I've been through, why I was there. It mattered that I was Crystal and these were my children, and you wanted to be there for me.
Normally, when we're asked to support a cause, we're asked to write a check, or we're asked perhaps to serve on a board, and that's fine. But with Family Promise, we're given the opportunity to get our hands involved, to get our bodies involved, to get our minds involved, to get our children involved.
There's no other way to explain that than the darkness, and then there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's just, there's no other feeling like that in the world, and it can be like that for everyone.
Compassion is alive and well in America. You know, we all lead such busy lives. It's not that we don't care. We want to make a difference, but we don't always know how to connect. And Family Promise allows people to make a difference in their own communities, in the lives of homeless families. When they get involved, doors are opened, lives are changed. The lives of homeless families, and the lives of volunteers as well.
In this series of training modules, you will hear from members of the Guest Advisory Council, or GAC, Family Promise is very thankful these program graduates give their time as GAC members to help the Family Promise program grow and continue to change the lives of families facing a housing crisis. Each graduate in this series now works directly with a Family Promise affiliate, as either staff or as a volunteer, because of the impact staff and volunteers had on their own lives while they were rebuilding and restabilizing. Family Promise is stronger because of their commitment to helping your service be empowering to the guests you're welcoming. However you're volunteering, leading guest classes, or participating at a host site, Family Promise thanks you for your time and commitment to ending homelessness, one family at a time.
Don't you like it when the videos are short? Okay. We'll move on from that. Okay. We've got all of these sections built into the online training. The online training was created so people can do this individually at home. Trying to do it in a group is cumbersome, as you can see. But we're trying to see how this could work and give some feedback to our national organization that prepared it. Okay, poverty is a complex problem. It won't yield to a simple solution. It requires an integrated approach that reaches beyond immediate needs. We initiate coordinated local efforts that bring communities together to help families experiencing homelessness regain housing, independence, and dignity. That's a lot of words. You know, what we're doing tonight is the beginning of helping. Family Promise here in Cobb has been, we've been around for a decade, but we've been touching being shut down off and on for the last 2 years. And to get reopened again is a good feeling for us. We want to be able to help. You want to be able to help. You're thinking about ways that you can help, and that's why you're here tonight. Americans are compassionate. This is what you just heard the lady say in the video. I'm going to skip over that one. Empowering compassionate individuals. Volunteering with Family Promise is a way of empowering yourself to help, and that's what we like to see. It can seem overwhelming, but having a nonprofit that has already figured out a way to help and breaks it down into small enough bites that every individual family can do something to help is a great opportunity for us, I think. Working together, volunteers provide temporary housing, meals, and services. The lady that you saw, the gray-haired lady that you saw in the video, was the founder of the National Family Promise up in New Jersey. She was commuting into New York, and one day she stopped and decided to buy a sandwich for this lady who was sitting on the sidewalk. And she sat down and listened to the lady's story while the lady ate. And having heard that, she went back to her suburban community in New Jersey, and she's had it on her conscience now that we need to do something. And she started talking to people in her community, and her church was not really willing to step up and become a shelter. That was more than they were willing to try and become responsible for. And what eventually happened in the wider discussion in not just her church but other congregations around was an agreement that they could rotate that job. And everybody was saying, look, we've got this unused space in all of our buildings. Every congregation out there in all denominations, all faiths, has got a building somewhere that they use for their services. Well, a lot of the week, that building is empty. It's empty overnight in almost all cases. Why couldn't we put people up there? That's where the idea came from. So in New Jersey, in that area, they started having a rotation among some congregations, and the people, I don't know how they started out screening them and finding the families, but they brought families in, and the families then were fed at the congregation. They slept there at night, and we do that still today. That started back in the 80s. Okay. Core values. hospitality, empathy, community, dynamic, innovative, empowering. Oh, they've got words that go with all of that too. I've been through this individually, but it looks really different when I'm trying to do it on the screen. Okay. Volunteers play an essential role in helping. There's about 200,000 people that volunteer cumulatively with all of the 200 affiliates in Family Promise and the national organization every year. And if we took those 200,000 people and created a company, we would be I think it's the 37th largest corporation in the world. Right behind Disney, or right ahead of Disney, right behind Ford, I think. It's just amazing to think how many people that is and what the reach of that group of people is. All right. All right, family homelessness. And you think about it, and if you've been in downtown Atlanta, you've probably seen people that you knew were homeless. You saw them sleeping on the sidewalk. You saw them panhandling. You saw them wearing clothes that made it obvious, and they didn't smell good. Mostly those are individuals. Mostly those are people that have different problems than the suburban family that becomes homeless. The homelessness is the same problem, but the reasons why and the mechanisms that it takes to deal with the individual that's sleeping on the sidewalk in downtown Atlanta versus a family that's sleeping in their car in Cobb County is different. It's maybe an easier, a lower hanging fruit for us to help some of the families out here, except that in Cobb County they're kind of invisible. If a family is not on the street, literally on the street, we don't see them. And these families are educated, they're people that have jobs, they just don't have a place to live. The kids are in school, the kids are in activities, they're playing basketball, they're in the chess club, but they're going home to sleep in a car at night, or they're sleeping in a transient motel. So it's harder for us to find them, it's harder for us to see them, and getting them to the next level takes casework. All right, I don't know if I can, is that big enough for y'all to see out there? The risks of homelessness. 1.7 million households live on cash income of less than, I think that's $25 a day. There we go, is that about $2 a day per person? 55% of people have subprime credit. 75% of people, this isn't homeless people, this is people, are living paycheck to paycheck. I've been there. Probably some of you in the room have been there. If it's 75%, probably a lot of us have been there. The poverty limit for people in 2020, I don't think we have the later numbers yet, was $12,000 for an individual, $17,000 for a family of two, and up to $26,000 for a family of four. If the rent in Cobb County is over $1,000 a month for a two-bedroom apartment, the fair market rent, that's not going to cut it. Okay, 1 in 16 children will experience homelessness before the first grade. That's one child in every kindergarten class. I've got a granddaughter who lives with me right now who'll be starting kindergarten in the fall. If you think about one child in her class may be homeless at some point during the year, in Cobb County we know that every year there are about 2,000 children in the Cobb school system that are homeless at some point. One of our biggest referral sources for Family Promise in Cobb is the counselors at school and the social workers in the school system. Impact on children. They're 3 times more likely to be placed in special ed if they're homeless. They're 8 to 9 times more likely to repeat a grade. 42% have dropped out of school at least once. They're 7 times more likely to have attempted suicide. And 47% suffer from anxiety, depression, or withdrawal. Okay, now the words that you see across the top there, the U.S. affordable housing crisis, when all is said and done, that's really what the problem is for most of the homeless families in the United States, not just here, but everywhere. It's having housing available that's affordable for people whose income isn't that great. We want a service economy in Cobb County. We want people who are willing to do jobs that are minimum wage. We want people who are willing to be servers for a caterer, or cashiers in restaurants, or maids, or janitors. We want people who are able to maintain the lawn in an office building. We want people to do things that are not going to be CEO salaries. We want them to be able to work here and take our jobs here. Well, we need to have places for them to live. If they've got to commute from Douglasville to a job in Marietta, the gas right now will break their budget. If they've got to commute from Cumming, the gas will break their budget. So we need places for them to live in Cobb County. And that's the affordable housing crisis, because we don't have that. In a survey several years ago that the Urban Institute contracted, they ranked all of the counties in the country in how much available affordable housing there was. Guess what county in the country had the least available affordable housing? Cobb County, out of all the counties in the country. Now, apparently we're not number 1 anymore. I think Gwinnett County is now number 1, and we're down to 3 or 4, but 3 or 4 is not significantly different. So we have a continuing problem. The eviction crisis. You probably have read some or heard some about the eviction moratorium during the pandemic. The federal government passed a regulation that forbade landlords from evicting people, but they keep talking about ending the moratorium. There is a backlog of people that have not been making their rent because their job went away because of the pandemic. They couldn't leave, they got sick, whatever, they couldn't pay their rent. And they will be evicted as soon as the landlords are allowed to do that. That will dramatically increase the number of homeless people, because there is not, I mean, you know what the rental rates, the real estate market right now is a seller's market for the houses, and the same is true for apartments. If you're trying to rent an apartment or buy a house, it's a tough market. Paths to Family Promise, and I've talked about that already. All right, here's another video. Let's see if we can, did you pull that one up as well? I think so.
There's no way I can convey. I can't even put into words how it is that everybody was just there. It didn't matter who I was, what I've been through, why I was there. It mattered that I was Crystal and these were my children, and you wanted to be there for me. And it just...
Can you hear that okay?
I don't know how to explain it. It's just an amazing feeling to feel like you belong somewhere when you have nowhere to belong.
your side, it's your first time meeting us, and you would like to know about us, but it's maybe the 30th time we're getting asked the same question over and over, and there's some good days for us, there's some bad days for us, you know, and just take that into consideration. Some of us, like, I'm a talker, I like to talk a lot, but maybe let the guest initiate. Maybe they want to offer information, maybe they don't, you know.
Basically, I would say be careful how you approach a person. You're a stranger, first of all, to them, and especially if they don't have family here, you know, they might be a little skeptical. So I would think the best way to just introduce yourself and let them open up to you.
You know, sometimes they want to share their soul with you, but just to be a listener, not to be critical, be helpful, ask if there's anything you can do for them.
You're probably not their first experience, you know. Many times the guests will make you feel comfortable. But yes, it's just a matter of relax. It's just some more people there, visit with them, you know, let them take the lead. They'll tell you what they're going to tell you, and just that there is somebody there that cares about them.
Yeah, you avoid things like, where are you from? Or where are you living? Or, you know, what happened? Or those kinds of things. Just greet them, always greet them with your name first. And that gives, and if sometimes they, you know, and then you say, and what's your name? And how do you like to be addressed?
I was very shy, didn't know, you know, what to expect from the volunteers. And I met a couple of volunteers when I first went to the church, and they were very, very warm, very caring, loving. They didn't pry. It was almost like a family. You just walked into a very loving place. You know, they talked to you like you were a normal person. They didn't judge you. They didn't tell you how to parent. They didn't tell you what you need to do, what not to do. They gave you a lot of encouragement. A lot of encouragement.
That's the main key. Just listen. You don't necessarily have to say anything. Just listen. That's all guests need. Just to have a listening ear. Because that's one thing that I was afraid I wasn't going to have. And here I turn around and that's exactly what I got.
I feel like it's nothing wrong with generally coming up and speaking, you know, hi, my name is Wap, and, you know, whatever. And if you need anything, then I'm here, you know, and leave it at that at the time. Because like I said, you already have a lot on you. You're already tired. You're carrying these bags. Then you have your kids. And we all know sometimes our kids can be so precious.
There used to be more to that video. I think they've cut it off. Okay. That video and this section right here are trying to help people that maybe have not talked to a homeless individual before know how to talk to them. You know, we all worry about what to say to somebody at a funeral when their loved one has just died. Well, I think it's natural that a lot of us probably wonder, how do I talk to somebody going through an episode of homelessness? I'm not in that boat, and I don't want to act like I'm superior to them. I don't want to hurt their feelings in any way. How do you do that? And so the guests that just spoke to us, I think, were telling us, here's how I'd like to be spoken to, you know, and mostly the thing is, don't ask them what their story is. Don't ask them how they got where they are. Don't ask them what happened. Mostly just let them come out. Talk to them about the fact that you're here. If somebody is coming to Unity or somebody's coming to another one of the congregations in our network as a guest in Family Promise, and you're there as the volunteer from that congregation, you're just a host, and you know, welcome them. Say if they've got any questions to let you know. If there's anything you can help with, you know, have them let you know that. And other than that, allow them to say however much or however little they want to say. You can talk to them about how their day went, talk to them about the weather, talk to them about what the food is for dinner, you know, ask them if they need a cup of coffee before they leave in the morning. the practical things that you need to talk about just because they're there, but don't talk to them about why they're there. And if they begin to talk to you, listen and empathize, and that's really all you need to do. And it's hard sometimes to think about that in advance, but I think you'll find that when you're sitting in that situation talking to one of them over dinner, it's not so much us and them, it's just they're other people and they're there. Relationships, volunteers should not provide gifts, including money or items of value, directly to the guests. Oftentimes, in talking to the guests, you'll find out something that there might be some particular thing that would really solve a problem that they have right now. And it may be that if they're getting ready to move out and they need bedroom furniture for one of the bedrooms in this apartment that they're getting ready to get, and you've got some extra furniture, you could give it to them, but then that creates a really awkward relationship between you and the guest. So what we ask that you do is, if you're finding that there's something that they need, communicate it back to the day center through your channels, through your coordinator at your congregation, back to the day center, and ask them, I've got one of these at home, how can I donate that? And it'll get worked out, okay? Don't exchange contact information with the guests. If you give them your cell phone number, that's on you. Family Promise recommends that you don't do that. There are phone numbers that Family Promise gives them to call in an emergency, which is the day center staff contact information, and that's what they're supposed to do. So protect yourself and protect the relationship that you have with them by not sharing that information. Show respect for their time, property, opinions, parenting styles. You will see some creative parenting by some of these families, but remember what they're going through. They might not parent like that all the time, and it's not our job to fix that, to correct that, to tell them what a great idea it would be to make sure that your kid doesn't play in traffic or whatever the situation is, unless it's literally imminent harm. Short of that, leave it up to them. One of the things most of our faiths asked us to do is to share our faith with this population of guests that we're inviting into our space. We ask you not to proselytize. You're welcome to make them welcome to come to your services, but kind of leave it at that. Most of the guests that we have in our system and have had over the years that we've been open have their own faith journey already, and so just be there for them and be welcoming and leave it at that. Don't confront guests over anything. We tell the guests at the outset that they can't use drugs at any time or alcohol at any time during the time that they're in our program. If you smell a guest with alcohol in their breath or you see them smoking marijuana out in their car, just report it back through channels. Don't confront them, okay? All right. I'm not sure why that's not maximizing, but if I can pay it forward and others see what I do, then maybe they will pay it forward and it will just be a chain reaction. Isn't that a cool thought? All right, I think that was the last section of this training. Now, what I want to do next is I've got a PowerPoint. Come on, open up there. That's more about the Cobb County Family Promise Program. Okay. I told you that there's a couple hundred affiliates like Cobb County that do this around the country. We're in 43 states. You can see the concentration there. There's 19 of them just in Georgia. I think the only state that has more is New Jersey, which is where this all started. Here in Cobb County, I think we now have 12 hosting congregations. We had 14, and I think a couple of them had to withdraw during the pandemic, but we still have a dozen. We have 8 supporting congregations, which means that they provide money and supplies and other services, volunteers, to the congregations that do host and to the program. We actually opened up for hosting back in the beginning of 2014. It took us a couple of years of organizing to get ready to find an office space, to recruit the congregations that were going to host, to hire, the director that was going to run the program for us. We're now up to 4 paid employees in our program. We have 2 transitional houses that we can put families in if they're able to be a little bit more independent. Our practical transportation for the program is a 15-passenger van. When we were opening up, we were told that we would need to get a 15-passenger van to carry our 14 guests around in to the places they needed to go to apply for jobs, to get the kids to school, whatever. What we found is that pretty much all of these families in Cobb County already have a car. And we found that out after we had already bought the van. So we've still got a 15-passenger van. We use this with a great big trailer to move the cots that these people sleep on. We have about 20 cots that we can use. We rotate some of them in and out if the cots have problems. But we have to move them if they're typically one congregation hosts for a week. When the rotational process is up and running full-fledged, every congregation hosts for a week about 4 times a year, and we rotate on a varying schedule which congregation is going to go to next. But on Sunday, after the families get up Sunday morning, they put all of their belongings in a great big rolling bin, one for each person, and the bins and the cots, which fold up, go in a trailer that we pull behind the van, and that gets moved on to the next congregation where they unload and put them in their space, and then the families are there for a week. As you can imagine, the families don't like having to move every week, but they like having a place that they can come at night and get a meal and have a place that's safe to sleep. Our day center has a couple of bathrooms with showers in it. I don't know if we still have the relationship with the YMCA. Our families used to be able to take showers at the Y, but I don't think they can do that anymore. We have a couple hundred of these affiliates like Cobb County that do this around the country, and they have different programs in different organizations. Here are the 4 programs that we have in Cobb County. We have the rotational shelter program, which is the families being hosted in the congregations. We have a transitional housing program. Right now we have 2 transitional houses, one in West Cobb and one in South Cobb. We have our graduate program, which is the 3rd box, which is our GRACE program. The folks that leave our program and get an apartment and become on their own again are independent of us physically, but most of them still have a lot of need for case management, and so we stay in touch with them. We allow them to stay in touch with us, and we offer programs for them. We continue to work with them on budgeting. We continue to work with them to help solve crises that arise in their lives. There's a stat that we have in these PowerPoints a lot about what percentage of people can handle a $400 emergency expense that shows up. And the percent of the population that can handle that is fairly small. Well, these people are at the very low end of the economic scale usually, and it's especially hard for them if the car breaks down. They rely on that to get them to work in school, and they don't have the extra money in their budget to pay for, a new water pump or whatever it is. So that's what the graduate program is. The food box program is kind of cool. I don't know where this will wind up going. The program that we get these from has been changing, but typically we've been ordering about 20 of these a month. And if we have somebody come in and apply that we can't take into the program, but they express to us that they are currently physically hungry, we have a box of stuff, dried goods and things that they can take with them, that they can put in their pantry, which may be the back seat of the car, but they can take with them that gives them food that may last a couple of weeks depending on the family size. We can't help everybody, but we try and give everybody that comes to us the best advice we can give them if we can't take them into the program. Okay, eligibility. There is a screening process. We can't take families that are running from the law. If they've got a major criminal warrant out for them, I mean, I'm not talking about a traffic citation, but if they've got something significant that would make them a dangerous risk to have in our congregation space, in close quarters with other families and volunteers, then we can't take them into the program. So we try and screen that out. We require that the family have children in the group. Other than that, we don't define a family. So it can be grandparents with kids, it can be a single father, single mother, or a couple, or, you know, your imagination is as great as ours. We've had families come to us where, you know, the mother had a child, but the child was an adult, and the child also had a child who was pregnant. And they were talking about wanting to be in the program. They wound up not coming into the program, but we had to make a decision one month at the board meeting. Are we willing to have a child in our care who is currently right now pregnant? And of course we said yes, the idea is to help these people. Anyway, substance abuse, domestic violence, we're not trained to help with these things. So we want people, there are so many people that need help that we're only able to help the people that don't require services that we don't offer. And that's kind of where we are. The guests are screened we run a background check and a drug test before they come into the program. And typically there's about 3 interviews that a family goes through before they're going to wind up in the program. All right. Here's some numbers from just 2021. Well, that's in the middle of the pandemic, so you can see that we didn't totally shut down. We still sheltered 13 families during 2021. 9 of them graduated into their own housing. Altogether, counting the adults and the children, multiplied over the 365 days of the year, we provided 1,453 bed nights for individuals that would have not had them otherwise. Each family averaged 111 days in our program. That's longer than it used to be, but you know, the problems during the pandemic especially were bad. 81% of our prior year graduates still remains housed after 1 year. And during 2021, we had a family that had graduated from our program finally become a homeowner. Yay. You know, these are cool people. They have been through a lot. He had a major stroke and was in the hospital, and we didn't know if he was going to live at one time. She was working as a school bus crossing guard while he had a job up in Cartersville. Getting that every day was a pain. Pardon me. Overall, in 2021, 500 applications. That's down from the 800 that we had in 2018. But 81% of them were still housed after a year. And we gave away a car. We have partners that we work with that sometimes can provide a car. And if we have a family that doesn't have reliable transportation, boy, is that a boon. All right, I've already talked about the program. I think you know what rotational shelter means now. There's the van and the trailer. And we don't put Family Promise on the side. As you can imagine, the families don't want to ride around in a vehicle that says, I'm in the Family Promise program. So that we very rarely are driving them anywhere, but they still don't want that around. Okay, so as you can imagine, the problems related to homelessness span a wide range, and this is just some examples. These are some of the kinds of things that our case management process talks to these families about. Financial literacy is a combination of budgeting and planning and all of the things that you know you have to do for your family on your budget. Family mentoring, some of that is how to parent. You and I don't do that, but the case managers may talk to them about that, or may suggest classes, anger management, whatever the other problems are that come up. Rental assistance, a gas card to take to the gas station to buy gas for your car. The list is longer than we can fit in a slide. Cobb County has about 750,000 people, and the unemployment rate is about 4.5%. For Georgia, a little under that for Cobb County. 10% of Cobb's residents live below the poverty level. I showed you the levels before. And as I mentioned, about 2,000 kids in the school system are homeless at some point during each school year. The fair market value, these numbers are, I think, from 2019. So this is before the real estate market went totally crazy. The fair market value is probably more than 1031 now. HUD will pay $970 for a 2-bedroom apartment. And that was 2018. For every 100 seekers of permanent housing, there are only 18 available affordable housing units. And Cobb is down to number 3. We're still in better shape, worse shape than Fulton and DeKalb. Half of the renters are cost burdened, meaning, you used to hear your rent shouldn't exceed 30% of your income. I don't know what the current recommendation is, but most everybody looking for housing is above that. Our graduate program, we started this in 2017. They meet monthly and they talk about all kinds of things. Prior to COVID, the meetings were held in different locations. We often provide lunch. We often provide babysitting during those meetings. Here's some of those meetings. You may recognize a crazy guy in the middle picture. But these are Cobb County families that have graduated from our program. Baby shower. Food boxes. Action Ministries, I think, goes by a different name now, but they are still providing us food boxes. St. Peter and St. Paul's Men's Group volunteered to get the boxes, physically get them and bring them to us. Each of those boxes is big. The last thing on there I think is significant. I talked to our executive director on the phone yesterday, and she said, one of the things we're trying to do right now bless you, is we've got one of our computer gurus trying to create an app that will pull together the schedules of the different food pantries around the county. When we try and advise people that come to us of where they can go and get some free food, it's hard because there's lots and lots of places that do that. You guys, I think it's Wednesday afternoon. And I see the sign. I drive right past here because I just live kind of behind here. If you're physically very local, you see that sign and you know when the food pantry is for this congregation. When is the one for the Presbyterian church up the street? I don't know. I know they have one. So how does Family Promise advise somebody that's coming to them and is hungry where they can get some food on a Thursday morning? Well, we're trying to develop a more organized way to do a search for a Thursday morning to see what's available.
Hey, Bob, I want to give you a chance to catch your breath a little bit.
Okay.
And just say, one of the benefits of Family Promise is this network that has happened. We have connected and united with other church organizations in Cobb County we never would have related to, never would have had an experience or a relationship with without the Family Promise network. And the numbers are phenomenal. They don't lie. You were successful, and I just want to take a second while you catch your breath to give credit where credit is due. We were one of the first congregations in those meetings 10 years ago, and you were one of the visionaries. You and all the rest of those people. The benefit of what is happening is, yes, obvious in the numbers, but the benefit for the energy of Cobb County as a more unified whole today, whether it be food banks, whether it be housing people in need, or whether it just be the relationship of remembering that we belong to each other,
Yeah.
the work that you have done has been instrumental. That's the work that we're about here in Unity. And families and people and individuals of different faith traditions have been connected. We remember we belong to each other. And I think it's important to just give you a chance to break. I wanted to say that because I was feeling an overwhelming warmth for the visionaries that have made that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And I think we've got some people from some of the other congregations that are watching this live stream, so thank you to them too. It's been a blessing to me personally to participate in this process, both from some of the individual people that I've met, like Richard and Judith and other congregations, but to participate in seeing some of the worship services. I've been at services at the temple. I've been to worship here. I've been to see people that I might not have experienced, and having friends all around the county now. Well, I shouldn't say all around the county. One of the points that I want to make is Family Promise of Cobb County right now is primarily an East Cobb thing at the moment. Now, we've known that for some time, and we are planning, there are plans, there are efforts being made to expand us into West Cobb and South Cobb, but as we move gradually in that direction, I think it's going to take us into some territory that will be logistically different. We have our day center right now in an outbuilding on the campus at Transfiguration Catholic Church. That's not very central to the county as a whole. So if the 12 or 13 or 14 congregations that we're coordinating right now are all in kind of the eastern side of the county, and all of a sudden we get another 8 or 10 or 12 congregations that fill up the rest of the county, where should our day center be? Can we still have it where it is? Would we have to move it to a more central place? Where would that be? Would we need a day center in each of those networks? You know, logistically, you begin to think of those kinds of things as you expand. About the time we were opening up in 2014, there was a similar affiliate opening up in Fulton and North DeKalb, and we went and talked to them and kind of shared stories about developing with them. I have changed the congregation that I attend now, and I'm now going to a congregation in Roswell that's in the North Fulton network for Family Promise. But that was a nice feeling to move over there and find that Family Promise was already present. It's creates a wider family, I think. I stuck this slide in. This was not originally in this PowerPoint that I borrowed from our director. This is kind of return on investment. If you've been in the business world, you know that term, talking about comparing our hosting model to a shelter or to staying in a motel, and what it costs and what you get. And I think you can kind of read what that is up there. The cost in Family Promise, we have a salary for, in Cobb County now, 4 people. We're paying some rent in our transitional houses to whoever owns them, and we're paying some rent at our day center. We have some utility bills, we have supplies, but largely we leverage everything that we do on volunteers. You know, if you're staying in a shelter, they have volunteers, but they also have this big building they've had to build to house the people that they're housing. If you're in a motel, that's an entirely commercial process. So there's a profit margin involved for somebody. 74% of our families move into transitional or permanent housing. That's only 41% for people that go through a regular shelter process. And of course, there's no way of knowing what that number would be for people that are in a motel. Okay. So this is kind of the words that go behind that. We build communities. I think that's what Richard was just saying. You know, doing Family Promise, you're helping people that may not live very close to you when they leave our program. They may live in another part of the county. They may live in another county. I remember a family very early on in our program that the only place we could find for them was in Douglasville. And so we helped with the van to move all of their stuff to this apartment in Douglasville. That's a long drive out there. You know, so the Family Promise community now includes a family in Douglasville. You know, this was a number of years ago, but you take the spread of people that we have helped, you take the spread of the volunteers. Richard, you were mentioning somebody earlier that you remembered meeting at one of our programs early on in developing the Cobb County network, who has moved away. When you moved away, you moved to somewhere else, and if they don't have Family Promise, you're probably inspired to help start it there. And that's how we got a couple hundred of these around the country. Okay. That's what I had prepared. Does anybody have any questions about anything I haven't mentioned or about how something works? I know one of the things that comes up, we tell you to kind of keep your own space when you're relating to the families that are guests in our program. And we tell people to look out for something called dual relationships. And the PowerPoint that we had at the time didn't really explain that. Does anybody know what a dual relationship is? Well, you have a relationship as a volunteer with each of the members of the families that are guests in our program at that time. And you know them as people that have needed Family Promise and have come into the program. They've been screened, and now they're living among the other families and among the volunteers. What if the 16-year-old daughter in one of the families is a cashier at Wendy's, and the next day you go through the drive-thru? Well, you now are meeting somebody who's in the Family Promise program in another environment, in another capacity. So you're now a customer of her. That's a second relationship that you have with her, in addition to being a volunteer. So be careful if you run into one of the guests in another setting. You don't want to let on to anybody else around them how you know them, because that might embarrass them. I meant to ask at the beginning, has anybody in the room volunteered for Family Promise before? Okay. I've probably been preaching to the choir then, because it looks like the majority of you have done something with us in the past. And I'd asked the people at home to raise your hands, but I don't have a piece of paper to write down the results. So if you have been volunteering with us in the past, you're now certified because you've been through the official training, if you didn't do that before. Be sure and let somebody at your congregation know if you haven't officially registered to go through this, because they need to know that they can use you now. They can let you be around our guests, which Family Promise requires that you're supposed to do. But I'm happy that you've been here tonight. I'm happy that we had good weather, and we thank Unity for the beautiful space and the technology to make this work tonight. I hope all of you have a great day, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Bob. And yeah, the applause is due. I want to thank you for taking the time to be here and to bless our home and our congregation here tonight.
Thank you.
And I just want to say thank you to the people who are in the room. You're here because you care. You're here because you have cared. A lot of hands went up. Those of you online, you are present and you are watching, whether it be tonight or it be a week or two from now, but you're watching and paying attention because there's something within you that says, I can make a difference. And when enough of us get together like this to make a difference, it doesn't matter what congregation we're from, we make a difference not only in Cobb County, but on the planet, and the human race is uplifted. And so that's what we do here at Unity. That's what I know all of you do in your congregations. And for those who are typically here on Wednesday night, we will have meditation again the next Wednesday. But as I said at the beginning, service is the highest form of meditation. Service is the highest form of prayer. And so I thank you for taking this modality tonight and being here. We have decided tonight at Unity North that we usually take an offering on Wednesday night for the program that we've had. For those in the room, there's a couple of baskets in the back of the room. And then online, you can text to give. The guys will put that up on the screen. You can text to give. All of the donations tonight will go directly to Family Promise. We, as a community and a partner with Family Promise, everything that comes in tonight, either online or in the basket, will go directly to Family Promise in a check that we will share as our partner, as our sister, brother organization, and as brothers and sisters in God. Let's end with a moment of prayer, and let's just give thanks. Take a breath with me. And we close our evening giving thanks for the source of all the love that has been shared, all the information that's been shared. We find our home in God, all of us. And we may be homeless, but it's the same home where all of us dwell and live, regardless of our ethnic background, our religious belief system, or whatever type of thought we have. We belong to each other. May we know this as we go our separate ways tonight and take the love that has been present here in this room and for the last 10 years here in Cobb County. And may we expand this and amplify the energy of what we have felt for those 10 years, what we have felt here tonight. And know that when we meet again together as partners in believing, as co-creators in love, that the program will be expanded times 100. Thank you, God, for this evening, these people, and for Bob and the work of Family Promise. Amen. Thank you so much for being here this evening. Again, you can make that donation online or in the baskets on the way out. Have a wonderful and blessed evening.